So I made the video a couple of days ago about what I thought between the Empire and the Stormcloaks, and it really was just my opinion. It was supposed to be a video because a lot of you guys have been asking me for the longest time, "Hey Rex, like, are you an Imperial pig or are you a Stormcloak?" And I was waiting to answer because I wanted to actually make a really cool video or just talk about it in lore play. And I did the video, and it was supposed to be a pretty biased, I guess, view on the events, because it was supposed to be what I believed. It wasn't supposed to be like a fair representation of anything, because I thought that's what you guys wanted. But I don't know if it's really the majority or the minority or just the vocal majority, but there's a lot of people in the comments of that video, and it's, man, the comments in the video has more comments than any other video like I've done for the first couple of days that I've ever released a video. Like, it's crazy. You guys are very vocal with what you believe in, and I mean, a lot of people agreed with me, but there's what appears to be a vocal majority of people that were, I don't want to say upset, but maybe just disconcerted that I was very unbiased in my view of the Civil War, that I didn't really talk about the pros that the Stormcloaks have, and I wanted to fix that with this video. It wasn't really my intention to make a non-biased one, but I feel like I have to do a non-biased one at some point, and I feel like it might as well just be a response to that video. And the reason why I want to do that is because I think it's important to some degree to and the more you know about the storyline, obviously the easier it is for you to make your own assumptions. But the reason I want to make it, and the biggest reason, is because, like, it's not like the Stormcloaks are wrong. They really are not, and they have a very valid argument against them, against the Imperials, and a very valid reason why they're doing the things that they're doing. And it is very unfair to just completely demean them and say that they're just silly, right? Because they're not. They really are not. So let's talk a little bit about it. And I guess the first thing I want to talk about is about the way you do war and the way a kingdom takes over another kingdom. And we talked about it on the last video, and I'm not gonna really go about it again. I mean, we talked about why a kingdom doesn't want to destroy the other kingdom, and that still holds true, of course. But the thing is, when the elves took over the Imperial City, and when the humans wanted to surrender, see, you really only have two options. When you already won the war, when your army is bigger than the enemy's armies, there's only two things that can happen. You either surrender the easy way right then and there to save as many people as you can to maybe fight another day. That's one option. Or you can do the other option, which is freaking fight to the death. Fuck you, I'll stand for my beliefs, and I'll see you in hell, which is the other option. And those are very valid options. I mean, people... I'm 100% sure that a lot of cultures have done that in the past. You know, they don't want to bend their knee to anybody, and if you're fighting for something that you truly, truly believe in, especially if it's religious, you will fight until you're dead, you know? And this is the difference in philosophies between what I would say would be the Empire and the Stormcloaks, but more specifically, Rike and Ulfric. See, the easy way out, and I think both of them have, I think, reasons to be legit. Like, none of them, I don't think one of them is necessarily superior than the other. See, the easy way out, I feel like, is the logical way. It's in some ways, it is smarter to realize that, okay, look, you won the war, I can continue fighting, but the ratio between humans that are going to be dead and the elves that are going to be dead are going to be way off charts for the humans. Like, we're going to die a lot more than we're going to kill elves. Like, at this point, you have the ships are on the board. We know that we cannot fight against the elves anymore. They've won. And we'll talk more about the war in a more specific, I guess, way in just a bit. But the elves, for all terms and purposes, were winning. And they were winning by a lot. And you have to make a decision. Okay, well, we can give up now, you know, I guess, concede whatever it is that the elves want from us, and we will live to fight another day, which we will fight another day. And it has been proven by, especially in Skyrim, there's a couple of quotes and books that say that, especially if you side with the Empire in the Civil War, General Tullius tells you that there will be a second war. See, we humans call the war the Great War, but the elves call the war the First War with the Empire. So it's almost like assuming there will be a second war with the Empire. You know, if you say World War One, you put that one in there because you're assuming that there will be more. You know, when World War One happened, you didn't call it World War One, you called it the Great War, right? It's literally the same thing. Literally the fucking same thing with this game. They were calling it the Great War when the elves knew that there was going to be a second, so they called it the First War with the Empire. So, and they tell you this in Skyrim, so you know that, and the Empire, even the Imperial City and the Emperor, they knew that there was going to be a second war, and they were preparing for that. So they gave up, they gave these concessions because they knew that there was going to be a second war. So they wanted to cut their losses, group up together, figure out a plan, and then fight again against the elves. But they wanted this war to happen. They knew that it was going to happen. So these concessions with Talos and Hammerfell, they were not permanent. They knew that they wanted them back. Now the hard way would be what they didn't want it, which is what Ulfric wanted, which is, fuck you, Thalmers, we will fight you to the death. We will not give up our gods. We will not give up any land. And you might win against us, but we will fight with honor. And until the end, you know? And it's something, it's a difference in philosophies that obviously happens when you have a lot of different races with different, I guess, cultures. See, the Nords have always been about honor, you know? And we talked about this with Torek before, where he knew that he was going to die by Ulfric's hand, yet he accepted the duel and died, even though he could have easily just said, no, I'm not going to duel you, you know? But he did anyways, because of honor. You know, there are reasons in their culture that makes them behave the way they do, and that's what Ulfric was. Hey, we're not giving up. What are you talking about? Let's fight. We can still fight. We're gonna die, sure, but let's die with honor. So there's two very different philosophical views here that I think are both very much legit. But obviously the first was chosen, which angered Ulfric, which made him start the Stormcloaks in the first place. But it's I don't want to make it as one-sided as I think I made it out to be on the first video, because there really is some valid points to bring up, and I want to bring them up. And the point that I want to bring up first, before we even talk about the Great War, is the racism, because usually what comes out of people's keyboards in the comments when they say that they don't like the Stormcloaks is the racism, and I'm not gonna say that there isn't any racism. What I will say is that it doesn't have to necessarily be racism, what you see in the game. And I will also say that there's racism in the whole game, as far as every single race. Now, we could go probably land by land and talk about how it is ruled, but just to keep it short, I mean, we know that Somerset Isles are controlled by the High Elves. They rule their own land, as at least as far as this point is concerned. Like when you look at the kings and queens and the rulers of each land, like it's very obvious to see that everything is very segregated. High Elves rule High Elves, Wood Elves rule Wood Elves, Khajiits rule Khajiits. It's always been like that. It's even so with the human lands. Probably the least so would be Cyrodiil, because it's probably like the biggest mission mash of civilizations that you will see in the game. But High Rock is ruled by Breton kings. Like, I mean, I don't know, you guys can tell me if there's a king in High Rock that is not a Breton, but I'm pretty sure they're all Bretons. You know, everyone in Hammerfell are Hammerfell princes. They all are. You know, Morrowind is ruled by Dark Elves, and Skyrim is ruled by Jarls. Like, there's probably, I think there was a Dark Elf count in one of the cities of Cyrodiil. You guys can correct me. I think Cyrodiil probably has like one or two counts that are not Imperials, but it's always been like that in the Elder Scrolls. Everyone, you know, you have the land of every single race, and they rule each other. I mean, they rule themselves, their own race. That's what I'm talking about. So, wanting to see, I don't think the Stormcloaks never wanted to kick everyone else out. I don't think it's as, you know, I don't think we're talking about Donald Trump here or anything. It's it's not the way I see it, and the way I feel like it should be seen is more of a hatred against the Dark Elves more than any other race. I don't think the Stormcloaks hate the Thalmor as much as they hate the Dark Elves, but I'm pretty sure the only other race that hates another race as bad as the Nords hate the Dark Elves is probably the Argonians hating the Dark Elves, so everyone hates the Dark Elves. But look, there's a reason for that. And you have to see it in the sense that these guys, the Nords and the Dark Elves, have been fighting since time immemorial. I mean, literally since the first era of the creation of the Elder Scrolls. And I want you to look at it this way. And this is a metaphor. I don't want anyone to be offended by this metaphor. I'm just trying to be funny because I guess this is my sense of humor. But it should make it easier to understand. Imagine if the Dark Elves killed Jesus, which in the Elder Scrolls, they literally did, right? Well, they didn't literally kill Jesus, because, I mean, when you're talking... sorry. When you're talking about Lorcan was killed by... Oh, my god. I think it was Trinimac, right? I mean, before... I think it was Trinimac, right? I don't remember anymore, specifically who killed it. The point is, it was killed by elves, but the heart itself of Lorcan is owned by the Dark Elves. So... Jesus was killed. Your God and Savior Jesus was killed. And the heart of Jesus is possessed by the Dark Elves. A heart that would literally revive Jesus to his full glory if they so wished. If the Dark Elves were to just give you the heart of Jesus, you could resurrect Jesus, right? Now, Jesus was killed and he resurrected in the third day as the Underking. Let's just say the Underking, you know, whatever. You know where the heart of Jesus is, and you want it, because if you take it, you can revive your Jesus fully, and he will be super powerful. So you grab a bunch of Nords, and Jesus commands this group of Nords to go to Morrowind. And then the Dark Elves say, no, we will not give you the heart of Jesus. Instead, we'll kill you, and then they kill Jesus again. The resurrection of Jesus is being killed by the Dark Elves. Of course you're gonna be pissed. I mean, of course you're gonna have hatred towards a race that literally kills your god and then prevents you from resurrecting your god. Like I don't think it's like racism, because when you think about racism, my idea of racism is I am better than you by just being me. Just because I am the way I am inherently superior than you as a person, as a race, as an entity. That's not what the hatred of the Nords have over Dark Elves is. Like, it's more of a, you guys are fucked up, and you guys have fucked up us up so many times that we just hate you. We don't like you. And I the word racism has a lot of history attached to it as far as the real world is concerned, that I don't think it necessarily applies to the same thing with this game, because the baggage that the word racism carries is not the same baggage that the hatred that the Nords have for the Dark Elves has. They hate each other because of their race, sure, but it doesn't have the same baggage. And I guess you guys can argue with that if you want. That's okay. I want you guys to comment on the video and give me your points of views on this. But and look, I don't want to say that I agree with the Nords, because I don't, and it's not even the point. My point is, it doesn't have to be racism. I'm not saying that it isn't. I'm just saying that it doesn't have to be. And that's... See, it's hard because the Nords, the whole point of the Civil War movement that the Stormcloaks are doing is that Nords rule Nordland, right? That's the whole point of this. And anyone that kind of gets in the way of that, it's an enemy. And that's just the Nord way of doing things, the culture, you know. You guys remember at the very beginning of the Civil War, Ulfric literally says, and I quote, you know, if you're not with me, you're against me. He literally says that, which, by the way, is my counter argument with those in the comments that were saying, hey, well, Ulfric wanted to have the moot say that, you know, that he was the High King of Skyrim at the end of the Civil War if Ulfric wins, which I counter by saying it doesn't matter if there's a moot or not at the end of the Civil War, because everyone knows that you either are with Ulfric or you're against them, and he already killed literally every single Jarl well, not killed, but imprisoned and fought against every single Jarl that was against them. Now you're gonna have a moot. A moot that, oh wait, half of those people that are gonna be in the moot were literally put in their place by Ulfric. Ulfric literally gave the seat of the Jarl to these people, half of the congressmen of the moot. And you're gonna say that vote is gonna be fair. Of course that vote is not gonna be fair. You're crazy? There's no way that they're not choosing Ulfric, and that's why he was like, oh yeah, we'll just have the moot. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if there's a moot or not. Ulfric is gonna be High King, and he knows that. So, whatever. That's another point. You can see that I'm inherently biased against the Stormcloaks, but no, I don't want to say biased. Biased is a strong word. I side with the Empire, but and I already gave my reasons for that. What I wanted to talk about is I want to defend the Stormcloaks because it is not as one-sided as I made it out to be, and I guess that was the whole point of the video. So that's why I want to talk about the Great War, about the actual war that happened, because, and this is probably one of the biggest pros that the Stormcloaks have, as far as whether they might be in the right or not. And of course there is no right, it's really all subjective, but let's talk about the war. So thankfully we do have a very cool scene by scene of what happened in the Great War. Bethesda was really nice at giving us almost like a war summary of how everything went down. And I mean, I guess we could probably talk a little bit about it, but it all started, and trust me, this is all important, but it all started with the Thalmor. Well, I guess it all started with the Blades. And this was one of the biggest things in the White Gold Conquer, that you have to get rid of the Blades. And I know that you guys are very hastily, you know, I guess, siding against the elves. And I've noticed that from a couple of videos ago. You guys hate the elves, hate them. And there are some reasons why I feel like that's okay. But let me I guess take the devil's position here. The elves were currently, and let's go back a couple of years. This is at the beginning of the 4th era. I think it's like maybe like the 29th or so year on the 4th era. This is about 180 years before the events of Elder Scrolls Skyrim. The world was pretty much owned by the Empire. I mean, Talos came in and conquered everything. We talked about that on the Talos Secrets video. Talos owned everything, so the Empire owned everything. What happened was, in the Senate, in the political system of the Somerset Isles, the Thalmor were getting very popular. Why? Because the elves don't like humans. How about that? The elves didn't like humans, and a political party that opposed humans and was in favor of elvish superiority becomes very popular when you're obviously being owned by humans, which you dislike. So you can see why it was evident that the Thalmor union was becoming so popular in the political system of the Somerset Isles. The problem is that the Blades saw this. The Blades that were currently positioned in the Somerset Isles saw that the Thalmor were becoming very popular, and they did not like that, so they tried to fight against them in this underground kind of, you know, war that was going on in there. The problem was that the Blades lost. And that was really the start of the whole war. The whole reason why the Great War even happened in the first place was because the Blades lost that war against the Thalmor, which, you know, now with the Blades out of the Somerset Isles, the Thalmor became the political, the biggest political party in the country, which made them win, which pretty much made them take over the whole political system, which, I mean, and as we know, they're pretty radical in their beliefs that the elves are superior to humans, which made them rise up in civil war against the Empire, which made it so every single outpost of the Imperial government was pretty much taken over by the Thalmor in the Somerset Isles. And a lot of stuff happened during the Oblivion Crisis, and the events that followed suit after that. The countries of Elsewhere and Valenwood were taken away from the Empire because of the Thalmor, of course, as well. A lot of the empire was pretty much like completely destroyed. We know that the eruption of the Red Mountain in Morrowind made Morrowind pretty much like unproductive. Like they were just having a really bad time over there in Morrowind. There was a lot of civil war in Hammerfell. And, I mean, everything was pretty much destroyed because of the Oblivion Crisis, really. But the only countries that were doing pretty good were Cyrodiil, Skyrim, and High Rock. They were thriving. They were fantastic. So what happened is the Thalmor grew in power. They sent a message to the Emperor. And this is the important part because the Thalmor wanted war. They were not very happy with how the Empire treated them, especially the Blades. And I mean, the actual radical movements of the political system obviously had a lot to do with that. But they made a certain amount of demands to the Emperor that the Emperor just couldn't agree with. And this is what Ulfric wanted in the first place. This is the type of stance that Ulfric was expecting from the Empire. You see, the elves said that the Empire should abolish the Talos religion. They didn't want them to praise Talos at all. The Empire actually said no to this. They said, fuck you, we are willing to go to war for this. We will praise Talos and suck a dick. The Empire actually did that, which started the war, and a lot of other things were being asked by the Thalmor that, I mean, I guess it doesn't really matter. The only important thing that mattered was Talos, and of course, the fact that they for some reason wanted Hammerfell. Like the Thalmor wanted the southern part of Hammerfell. I have no idea why. If you guys know exactly why, if there's something in there that the elves wanted, then let me know, but I have no idea. They just wanted the coastline of Hammerfell, so that was kind of crazy. But then the war started, and you know, we don't really have to talk about too much in depth about the war. The important thing about the war, though, that I feel like gives the Stormcloaks a sense of kind of like a reason for them to behave the way they did is because, see, the problem with an empire is that you don't really rule yourself. You're not truly independent. If the emperor says, hey, fuck your land, we have to defend my land, then you have to do it. You have to. Like, if at some point, because of whatever scenario is happening in the war, the emperor has to decide whether to save Hammerfell or save Cyrodiil, he of course will choose Cyrodiil over your land. And that's something the Stormcloaks don't want. They don't want an emperor that has the ability to say, well, fuck Skyrim, we have to save this other land instead because I wanted to. It's kind of bullshitty. And it actually happened in the war. There was a war. It was a battle. Well, a very specific section of the war where Hammerfell was suffering hardcore. And, I mean, obviously, both Cyrodiil and Hammerfell were suffering hardcore. And the Emperor said, all right, well, we'll take the army from Hammerfell away from Hammerfell, and we'll secure Cyrodiil. And you know, that's something that obviously pisses off Hammerfell. It's something that is kind of bullshitty. Like, hey, we also want to fucking, you know, we're dying here. Like, we need our army. But the Emperor said, no, you give me your army, and we'll save my land first. And one of the biggest reasons why you really do want independency. But, you know, the war happened, and the Imperial City was lost, and then was retaken, and then the Concordat was signed, because, to be fair, the war was pretty much lost. There are a lot of those who think that there was reason for the war to still continue, and then there was a lot of, you know, anything could have happened. The Empire could have still won. Like, it really wasn't as it wasn't like a landslide victory by the elves. It was a pretty close victory, and we actually signed the Concordat when we were in the advance. To just kind of keep it short, the elves took over the Imperial City. They sacked the Imperial City, sacked the White Gold Tower, and a lot of heinous things were done to the populace in the Imperial City. The Emperor escaped with an army, but then he fought back and retook the Imperial City. He killed one of the biggest commanders that the Elvish army had, and they say that, well, history books say that they hanged this Elvish commander from the tower, just being hanged there alive for 33 days. And some legends even say that on the 34th day, the body was taken by a winged Daedra, which is one of those, like, what? But we don't really get told anything more than that. But anyways, so yeah, we destroyed pretty much the entire I don't know what to call it, the army that their job was to take Cyrodiil was completely destroyed by the Empire. Like, that was a massive blow against the Thalmor. And then is when we gave up. So I feel like there is a very strong possible belief that we could have actually pulled a victory in this war, but we gave up too early. And whether or not that's true, it's debatable, but it does give some credibility to what the Stormcloaks say of, dude, just fucking battle, you know? Like, it's not crazy to believe that we could have won that, but the whole point was, when we signed the White Gold Concordat, yeah, we gave up the ability to pray to Talos, but we also gave up Hammerfell. A part of Hammerfell, the southern coastline of Hammerfell, was given to the elves, which completely pissed off Hammerfell, as you might imagine, so much so, in fact, that they actually left. Well, they didn't technically leave the Empire as much as they continued to fight against the Thalmor. And because it obviously went against the White Gold Concordat to fight the Thalmor, they had to give up Hammerfell, because otherwise it would have been the war would have continued. So they gave up on Hammerfell. And this is the interesting part, because I made the comment before on the last video that if you completely leave the Empire, then you leave yourself in a position where the elves can invade you and do whatever they want with you. And, well, the Empire's not there to help you. That the only reason that you're alive and good is because of the Empire that is keeping itself together. Well, it's not what happened with Hammerfell. See, Hammerfell seceded from the Empire, and they went on to destroy the Thalmor in their own land. And the only reason that they could do that was because they were not part of the Empire. See, the contract, the White Gold Concordat, prevented them from fighting each other. It's a truce, it's a ceasefire. So they left the Empire so they could continue to fight the Thalmor and win even after the Empire had officially surrendered, and they won. They actually kicked out the Thalmor from Hammerfell. The problem with, and this is what Skyrim wants to do, right? This is what MrRhexx Stormcloak wants to do. He's thinking to himself, all right, look, if we fight against the Thalmor and we leave the Empire, then we could do what Hammerfell did. You know, we will be independent, which is awesome. You know, no more taxes being paid to the Empire and to the Thalmor. So we would be fully independent, we would rule each other. And we could kick out the Thalmor. You know, like, and we could rule ourselves in peace. Like, it's literally what Hammerfell did, and it worked out very well for them. So why wouldn't it work for Skyrim? And it is very logical. I mean, yeah, sure, right? The problem with this thinking is that this only works if you're strong enough to deal with the issue yourself. And Hammerfell apparently was. The problem is, if you're not strong enough to deal with this issue yourself, and you get invaded, I mean, you know, if the Thalmor really hate your guts and say, well, fuck you, we'll fight you, then alone, then you're fucked. Like, if the entire army of the Thalmor fall into Hammerfell lands, there's nothing the Empire can do. Like, they're not part of the Empire officially anymore, so they can be completely obliterated, and there's nothing that anyone can do about it. So it's a gamble, you know? Well, are the Thalmor gonna leave you alone? If so, then yeah, secede from the Empire, fight back on your own, and win your lands back. But if the coin toss falls on the other side, and the Thalmor really wants to take over you, which, I mean, at least for Hammerfell, we know that they really want Hammerfell for whatever fucking reason, but if the coin toss falls on the wrong side and the elves decide to invade you, then you're fucked. So what is it gonna be? You know, is Skyrim gonna be independent, and are the elves gonna leave them alone, or is it gonna be independent and the elves are gonna fuck you over and there's nothing that anyone can do about it? You know, and that's the thing, right? It worked out for Hammerfell, so it could work for Skyrim. So it gives a lot of credibility to what MrRhexx wants to do. You know, the problem is it would have been done better if it would have just asked Torrig to side against the Empire, and then you wouldn't have fought a war, killed a bunch of people, weakened the Empire as a whole, and you would still be independent, right? They could have just done that. But I wanted to talk a little bit more about, you know, the Stormcloaks kind of side of things, because I felt like I didn't really talk too much about the pros of the Stormcloaks side of things, and you guys know that I side with the Empire anyway, so it's you know, it's hard to convince you guys to root for the Stormcloaks when you already know that I'm against that. But I will say that it worked for Hammerfell, and they're doing just fine over there. So if Ulfric wins, then it might work out for them. Although we have to still understand that the canon thing that happened is probably the main quest for Skyrim for the Elder Scrolls V, which means that instead of the Civil War actually happening, what probably happened was the summit, the conference in the summit was made, and a ceasefire was made between the Imperials and the Stormcloaks, which is something that benefits the elves a lot. We know from the quest line in the Civil War and the dossiers in the main quest for Ulfric Stormcloak that what the elves want is for the battle to last a long time. If either side wins, if the Empire wins, or if the Stormcloaks win, then that's a benefit of the Empire and not a benefit to the elves. So what they want is for the war to continue and for it to be bloody and last forever, and which apparently is what it is. If we are to assume that the main quest is canon and not anything else. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this more unbiased look at everything. I hope it was to your liking, just as much as I can do. I think it was interesting. I hope I didn't get anyone offended with the Jesus metaphor. It's just my I guess my comedic side. It's just my sense of humor. I really don't want to offend anybody. But thanks for the comments. You guys are awesome. And yeah, see you guys next time. Bye bye.